Hey, this is Milissa doing a Bobbin Boy, and this is, aside from the introduction and the rules of the road and all of that, that was our first little video. This is the true beginning of your apprenticeship as a wood turner. The reason that I'm doing this rather than Alan, I'm a journeyman turner and Alan's a master turner. The reason that I'm doing this is that I have most recently been an apprentice. Alan actually didn't apprentice as a wood turner. He taught himself over the years, as I talked about in the very first introduction, and then I went into a formal apprenticeship and did apprentice with him. The formal apprenticeship is a 7-year apprenticeship, after which you become a journeyman turner. A master turner, just historically, so that we have this interesting little bit, doesn't mean that you've mastered every aspect. It doesn't even really have to do with mastery. It means that you know enough about your trade, because remember, these were gilded trades, okay? You know enough about your trade to where you could be master of your own shop. You knew how to do the metal work that was necessary to make the tools and temper the tools. You knew how to fix the equipment, whatever that was. You were a participating member of the guild, so that the apprentices could come and go, and you had some sort of storefront operation where you were selling things. Most wood turning shops made a wide variety of objects and hoped to make a living just like we do today. And so there were almost no wood turning shops that specialized in a thing. Unlike Alan and I, who do kind of specialize now in restoring and replicating items for the fiber arts, mainly spinning wheels, sometimes looms. We make some hand tools such as Hoatley's, tapestry bobbins, and shed sticks, but we have very, very few products. And then Alan is still the world's premier restorer of antique chess sets. But we are in a privileged position these days to have a niche market. That was not the case with wood turning, and so in the past, under the guild system. In the guild system, almost always you would make whatever order came through the door. There was one person, Bill Jones of England, 5th generation wood turner, well connected in the trade, and he spent a great deal of his time making wooden plug after wooden plug after wooden plug for Foley catheters. And so it's not the most glamorous, nor are you going to get rich doing this in this trade. As another little point of interest, I most likely am the only woman ever to formally do the full 7 years apprenticeship, because back in the days when they were doing the 7 years apprenticeship, women weren't allowed into the trades. So when Alan and I were discussing this, we stayed very close, cleaved closely unto, to sound kind of biblical, the historical structure of the 7 years apprenticeship, because it's kind of cool to probably be the only woman that ever formally did it. So in talking with you, I'm now a journeyman, you're an apprentice. In talking with you, I remember the things that went on when I was an apprentice, and I remember the struggles more clearly than Alan does, because Alan's been doing it for 30 years or so. Okay, I've been doing it for about 10, so I, 1/3 of the time. The first thing that I want to discuss is what's the bare skinny on what you're going to need, because that's what you want to know, is how much is this going to cost me and what do I have to get. You're going to need a lathe, $250, a drill press, $140, and a bandsaw, another $140. Okay, so let's call these $150 each, just to make it easy math. That's $300 plus the $150 for that, $250. Oops. Okay, so $300, so $550. All right. That's in your basic hard goods of equipment. You can do a lot without the drill press. You can't make spinning wheel bobbins though. So if you can't do the extra $150 for now, get the lathe and get the bandsaw. If you have to just get one thing, get the lathe. We are not tool snobs nor equipment snobs, and we shop a lot at Harbor Freight. The $250 for this is a lathe straight out of the workshop. We brought it up here for our little TV set, okay, because we have a few lathes. It's an 18-inch bed. You can buy an extension for it to make it longer in case you need to do bedposts or something, or table legs or something like that. Probably not bedposts unless you join them, like you can screw things together, okay? But you could definitely make table legs on it with the metal extension here. Okay? So this is a very versatile tool. Other thing to make spinning wheel bobbins, which is going to be the next lesson and the first true lesson, Alan's going to do that one. You're going to need a three-jawed chuck, that opens up to 5/8 of an inch. It's called 3-jawed because it has 3 jaws in there, and they go forward and back. In order to get smaller is forward, which is the other way, and back is bigger. See them, the 3 jaws? And it needs to be able to open up 5/8 of an inch. This is going to cost you about $100. Okay, it's very difficult to do the bobbins without doing it this way. Plus, this is the way Alan's going to teach you, and you're the apprentice. So now you're at $650 if you get this. That's a lot of money. Okay, I can't help it. Other people advise that you start with thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of stuff. We had a student a few years ago that told us that the first half day of a class that he went to before he came to ours was the guy telling them how much stuff they had to buy. Okay, and he came back with thousands of dollars worth of tools, and he didn't know how to turn. So that's not what we're after. We want you to be a wood turner. Fortunately, that $650, and like I said, you can get by with just the lathe. So start with just the lathe if you need to do some stuff, and we've got some other turning exercises that you could do. So buy your tools as you can. But the first lesson is going to be making spinning wheel bobbins, because that's what a billion skillion people want to know how to do. And so we're going to focus on that. I will tell you that you can, with just the lathe, I think this is right, Alan, I think you could make a chess set. Okay, yeah, Alan's nodding yes. You could make a chess set with just the lathe and the hand tools, although it would be really, really nice if you could at least borrow a bandsaw. There's nothing that you need to drill necessarily for the chess set unless you were going to weight the bases, and that's a different discussion. Okay, so we've got a make a chess set series, and you could make a chess set with the lathe and the hand tools. What are these hand tools? When Alan and I have some splashy hand tools, okay, and actually we have kind of junk hand tools anyway, because again, we don't focus on tools, we focus on skills, right? However, when we were teaching live classes, we would provide a set of tools made out of $1 screwdrivers from Lowe's, or whatever your equivalent is, probably the B&Q in England, and I don't know anywhere else. And Alan would do the tips with the profiles that are needed. We have a series of videos on how to make the tools, and I will upload those. When I was starting at first as an apprentice, or no, it was kind of the pre-apprentice. This is when I had my own lathe, and I was trying to figure it out from books, okay? I actually think this is one, I think this was mine that Alan's been wearing down. I bought the big tools that you think you're going to use, and I had real problems with them. And so I then turned and I got a small set of tools and was much, much happier with those. I just didn't have the skills to handle the width of blade that was up against the wood. And so when I went with a smaller blade, I became a better turner and was much, much more comfortable. I paid about $60 for these. They're by Benjamin's Best. They're like micro tools or mini tools or something, okay? You can see the approximate size in my hand, right? And I think that Penn State Industries here in the U.S., P-E-N-N, like William Penn, state like state, and industry like industry, has a nice set for $30 or $40. You could look online. Anyway, so what happened was I used, it was the skew that gave me particular problems, the big skew, and I used the little skew for about a year, and then one day I couldn't find it or whatever, and so I grabbed the big skew up with a little bit of insecurity still deep in my heart. And do you know what? The little skew for a year had taught me how to use the big skew, and so suddenly I was comfortable. So I encourage you to go with the smaller tools, either that you make or that you buy as a set, okay? Let me talk about, when I bought this set, I found that I only really used 3 tools out of it, plus 1 tool that Alan made, which I've got to find because I keep messing up the order. Oh, here, it's out. I had this in place. And these are the tools that I found I used. I used the skew, and it has a blade edge. Let me get another one. Has a blade edge like a knife, okay, and this curves away. When you buy your skew, it's not going to look like that. It's going to look like this. There's your blade edge. Up. There's your blade edge, but see that real sharp corner? you need to take your grinding equipment. You're going to need to have some sharpening equipment, which we don't have up here, but you will need to be able to sharpen. Oh, right, never mind. Alan just whispered sanding plate at me. Never mind, you don't need it. You'll be able to sharpen. And so you take this sanding plate that you're going to sharpen with and take the heel off to smooth that corner. The reason is that if you leave that corner there and you come up against it, this corner is liable to catch in the wood and keep snicking, okay? Whereas if you smooth it, you've gained more cutting surface because you can move like that, okay? While at the same time you don't have that sharp heel to catch. So you're going to need a skew. Another thing that you're going to need is a plunge cutting tool. And I'm going to show how these are used in a minute. Here's my little one worn down to the bare nubs, okay? And here's the one just about as worn. They came up from the workshop for our little TV set. And it's a much less versatile tool. It's for plunging in or doing something that's called parting off. You can part off with a skew too, but a lot of times you part off with this, which means that I've finished my piece, okay, and I want to cut off at that end. Then I would plunge in, and that's how it would part off the end, okay? And you'll learn that pretty quickly. The other tool that I sometimes use is a little bowl gouge, but you don't have to have one. It's not necessary. The skew and the plunge tool are necessary. And then a very nice tool you will have to make. Or there's one to buy. I think it's $60, which is ridiculous, okay? This is a 3-cornered tool. And what it is you take your screwdriver and you make a flat, and you make a flat, and you make a flat, and you're not real picky. You're not trying to make them all the same size, so that you got 3 corners, 1, 2, 3, and 1 point, okay? Sometimes we call it a 3-pointed tool. We're wrong, right? We just have neural pathways that are wrong. What this gives you is different edges. Do you see how that edge is different from that edge? That's a long, gently sloped edge. That's a short, sharply sloped edge. Those are different cutting surfaces that are very useful in the time. You'll get to where you just kind of keep turning it and find out which one works best. 3-cornered tool, you're going to need one. But that's it. So you bought the $60 set or the $40 set from Penn State, or you got $5 worth of tools from Lowe's and a $15 or $20 propane torch, which you're going to need to temper the tips, and you're set for your hand tools. Something else you're going to need, I said the chuck. You're going to need some drill bits. You've got a drill press, so you're going to need some drill bits. Those are cheap, okay? You are going to need some sandpaper. We sand up to 360 normally. These people that sand up to thousands and thousands of grains of sand per inch, we're not those people, okay? We sand up to about 360, 420 if it's our birthday, okay? And then we might use a polishing. This is a friction wax, Shellawax here. I know there's one in France because Peter found one. We might use a chamois cloth that's been treated, chamois. It looks like chamois. Okay, it's chamois. And then you impregnate it with auto polishing compound, clear. Okay, auto polish, and let it dry overnight. And this provides a really good polishing cloth. We use steel wool to polish. I use quadruple aught because I like it. Alan doesn't like quadruple aught, so he uses double aught, which is 2 zeros. I use the one with 4 zeros. You do you, I'll do me, Alan will do Alan. Okay, that's just so that you know. Steel wool is a great finishing surface as well. And that's about it. We don't finish with CA glue or anything like that. You'll see that's super glue. Okay, CA glue is cyanoacrylic or something like that. The pin turners use that for a real hard shine. I don't do it. I've never tried, and I like shiny. Okay, I'm like a magpie, but I still don't use CA glue. You can shop, but this is what we do. Now, this is something else you need. Alan's going to use this thing that I just forgot what a template, an engineer's template for circles, and that's cool to have. Okay, they're cheap, right? But what you really, really, really need is you need at least 1 caliper. Okay, and I'll tell you why. If you're going to make this handle, the traditional thing for the apprentice to do for themselves first was to make their own tools. You probably won't be able to make the handles for your own tools, but that's what they would make, is the handles for their own tools. And if you were going to do this curve, it needs to be that big. And so you would, I think I've already had several takes of this. The phone kept overheating. So it needs to be that big, to where it just clears. Okay, that big. Don't ask me how many millimeters, inches, miles, fathoms, anything that is. I'm never going to know. I don't care. You're not going to see a little LED readout of any kind of number, because I don't need a number. Why translate that big into a number? Just make the handle that big, okay? And then it's, oops, look right there. So not quite clearing, that needs to be sanded down a bit. Once it's that big, it's the right size. So we're not doing millimeters or anything, so don't ask, okay? Alan throws around more numbers than I do. I spent 16 years after high school in an educational setting. I prefer to stay illiterate as far as this aspect of it goes. I'm tired of knowing things like numbers. So you're going to need calipers. I use a lot of calipers when I'm setting up to do something to show you. You'll see me using lots. Alan uses a few. I can't think of anything else that's needed. Can you? You might want, well, you are going to learn how to make stuff like this. This is a sanding plate. You'll like it. That's a face plate that's screwed to a piece of wood that you turn, and then you use this. You can buy these little
PSA.
No, don't tell me that. Sandpaper is the word I was after, and it has to be sticky on the back. And Alan wants me to say it's PSA, like Peter, Sam, Aaron.
Pressure sensitive adhesive.
Or like pressure sensitive adhesive. In other words, it's got to be sticky on the back so that you can stick it to your sanding plate. When this gets worn off, you'll just peel it off, scrape it off, and put another one on. We like to have several sanding plates so that you can have different grips. Okay, so because you can't go back and forth. Once this comes off, it's getting ripped. Okay, so you might need a few pressure face plates in order to do this. Those you make out of scrap wood, and then buy your grits. We use 80, 120, and 240 usually, don't we? Yeah. Okay. So you'll make a sanding plate. Now I want to show you what a turner does. Okay. What does a turner do? A turner turns. Okay. Well, the turner turns something that is turning, all right, and that's where it comes from. And what is making it turn is the lathe. The lathe is powered here by a motor, not an engine. Engines combust, motors are electrical, okay, that's a motor. It is powered by a motor, and this head turns. Because we're holding wood and it needs to, it needs to be held firmly, it's also mounted here, but that just spins. It ain't got no power, okay? It's just following, and you'll see in a minute how I put that together. There were water-powered ones. There were the questionable pole lathes that were powered by foot. We did a lot of research on these when we were working at Mount Vernon, and we kind of think we know why all the spinning wheel repairs went into Alexandria to be fixed by the real turner who had a real lathe, but we'll let that be. We're not very good pole turners, okay? Whatever powered it, the thing, except for the pole lathe, which it just goes back and forth because that's all your foot can do, okay, to make it turn. But the others, be it the big straps, pulley straps that came down that ran it off of a mill that was over in the river, okay, or be it the motor that makes it turns all the way. The clearest analogy, before I show you wood turning, the clearest analogy to this that you will understand is the potter's wheel, which just goes around and around. Then you blop your clay on, and because it's nice and soft, you can use your hands. Okay, we can't use our hands with wood or bone or brass or the plastics, vintage and modern, that we turn on these lathes. Okay, the potter uses his or her hands, might use some tools, and all the wheel does is turn. That's what the lathe does. It just turns. Now that said, the wood turner is productive, i.e. making money, when the wood turner is in front of the lathe, working. This is your productive world, okay? Shopping, Facebook, watching us, bandsawing, nothing of that. None of that is making you money as a wood turner. This is where you're making money, where you're learning skills, where you're thinking about your trade. So you need to stay here as much as you can. Well, gosh, how about if I need to drill something? Sometimes you're going to use this drill press. Other times you're going to mount a bit here. This is turning, and you're going to bring it forward and drill it as it turns. How about if I need to carve something? You're going to carve on the sanding plate. Or there were little tools that were mounted here that they turned, and then you took the wood to them and did your carving work. Okay? You still always stayed at the lathe. in that sense, it's like a power takeoff for a tractor. Okay, those of you that know about tractors, you could hook a bush hog to it and you're bush hogging. You could hook a big mower to it and you're mowing. Okay, you can hook a plow to it and you're plowing. You can hook a farrow to it and you're farrowing. But so what you're using is the power of the tractor to do different things. That's the same thing here. The wood turners stayed at the lathe as much as possible and did carving. You can carve, and we'll teach you how. We've already taught people how. You can carve the knights, the heads, the horses on a chess set using the sanding plate. Okay? That's what carving in wood turning means. It doesn't mean the Michelangelo kind of thing, okay, where it's standing here and all of a sudden you got David. Alright? It means that you get to your lathe and you carve using this sanding plate. You can drill, you can ornament, and so on. Let's look at simple with the tools that I showed you. If you want to come up here, Alan. I'm going to take this piece of wood, this kind of knobbly, horrible looking piece of wood, and I'm going to mount it on the lathe. I'm going to mount it to the headstock, and it's got a little pointy thing. It can sometimes, you can get one where, can you see that goes in? The tip goes in when I push it, spring loaded. Get one of those. Don't get, where is that nasty thing? Here, no, where is it? There's a kind that you have to, it has big teeth and it doesn't retract like that. When Alan finds it, he'll show you in the next video. Don't get it because you have to hammer it into the piece of wood, and they're absolutely horrible. Some of them you have to use a screw. They're awful. Okay, mount it there, then bring the tailstock up. Go on and, okay, I've got it all the way back. This, when I turn that, see how that comes out? That's for tightening, okay? Good practice is to have it all the way back when you start, so that you got maximum throw and it's not wiggling a little bit there. Tighten this back here so it doesn't slide back and forth, and then push, because now it's pushing that spring back here and it's getting up against the teeth, okay? And you will keep doing that periodically. This is a tool rest. To do the wood turning the way that we do it, you get the tool rest as closely related, close to the piece that you're working on as you can. Now, one of the things that you're going to notice when I turn is that you're not going to see me swishing along with the blade up here. I'm going to be right like that turning, okay? That's because I was taught by Alan. Alan turns right like that. He started in metal, and by the way, I meant to say don't get a metal lathe, get a wood lathe. Metal lathes have got stuff in the front that'll just get in your way, okay? But we tend to work at the center, right? And people, what do they say we're doing? Scraping. That's right, we're scrapers. Okay, so you're apprenticing with scrapers. We don't finish or do any kind of skew work like this. When I started and was teaching myself and reading those books, these people caused me more trouble talking about their 12.5% angles than anything you don't even want to imagine. You want to be close, because if you're way out here and you're turning along and it catches and goes under, remember it's turning, okay? It catches, you're flipping your tools out of the way. That's dangerous, okay? So here we go. Head, tail. Head spins, tail doesn't. Tail follows. Here it goes turning. See it? Now, I'm going to turn. So, I'm up close, right? And I'm going to use the skew. This hand's back here driving. This hand's up here pivot. And I'm on the tool rest. Like that, okay? So there's a straight skew action, not this. I just don't do it, okay? I don't roll that way. I roll this way. So that's one thing you can do, is you can smooth it, okay? And look, I can touch. Don't be scared of it. It ain't gonna drag you, okay? I can also scoop. Okay? I can also incise. Turn it over. Alright? There's a lot I can do with this skew. This is your tool. The next thing is this plunge cutting tool. I did incise with that, but look, I can plunge. There's my plunge, okay? You can see that's a more limited tool, but you can see that if I plunged all the way to the end, I would have parted it off, and there's some techniques to that. The three-cornered tool. how about if I said, oh my gosh, I didn't mean to put that there. That was supposed to be another scoop. I can use the, remember I told you about, and see how my hands, I'm personal with this. I'm not way back out here doing this, okay? I'm right up in here. It is not going to bite me. And I can widen that up, okay? You're really cool when you make that. That's swarf, and it means you're the sexiest person with your mojo ever. Alright? I can incise. I can scoop. I can decorate. Okay, there you are with your three-cornered tool. With the little bowl gouge, it's pretty limited. I like to use a bowl gouge for end grain to get going on the end grain, but it'll snap. Be careful, okay? So you're not at end grain yet anyway. This is dull as it could be. But you can see there, I've got some action there, okay? So that's your basic turning with, I mean, what else do you need? You could have a collar, you could have a cut, you can have a scoop, you can have a plunge, you can have decoration, okay? And at that point, then you would start finishing or making your shape. This is your basic turning. This is where I want to leave us with. Tomorrow, Alan is going to show how to do a spinning wheel bobbin from start to finish. And so we will look forward to seeing you then. Bye.